Chris, a male ranger in the kingdom of Gaia, lives in Short Creek, a small town on the edge of the kingdom. The forest nearby is filled with dangerous creatures, and he often patrols the area to protect the town. One day, as Chris is patrolling the forest, he notices something odd in the distance. It looks like a glowing light, emanating from deep within the forest. He cautiously approaches and investigates, wondering what it could be. As he gets closer, he notices that there is a strange structure emerging from the trees. It's made of glowing stones and appears to be some kind of portal. He approaches with caution, ready to draw his bow at any moment. Suddenly, he hears a voice emerge from the portal. "Who dares trespass on my domain?" The voice booms, and Chris quickly draws his bow, ready to attack. The voice echoes throughout the forest, causing the trees to tremble and the animals to scatter. A figure emerges from the portal, a tall and regal elf with silver hair and piercing blue eyes. He is dressed in armor made of glowing stones, matching the material of the portal. He carries a long staff adorned with intricate carvings and glowing gems. "I am Nilrim, guardian of this portal," the elf says. Chris lowers his bow slightly but remains wary. "I am Chris of Short Creek, guardian of this forest. What is your portal doing here? Why don't you take it somewhere else?" Nilrim looks at him with a calm and assessing gaze. "This portal is not just any portal, young ranger. It is a gateway to the realm of the Fae, a place filled with magic and wonder. And as for why it is here, in this forest, this is the spot where the realms align, creating a stable connection between the two worlds." Chris, still cautious, asks, "Why did you act so aggressively when you stepped out of the portal?" Nilrim raises an eyebrow. "My apologies if I seemed belligerent. I have a duty to protect this portal, and I must be cautious of any potential threats. But now that we've established you mean no harm, I must ask for your assistance, Chris of Short Creek." "Why would I help you?" "I don't even know you, Nilrim," Chris replies. "I have no problem helping those in need, but you're neither someone I know nor someone who looks like they need help." Nilrim nods, understanding his skepticism. "You are right, Chris. You have no reason to trust me. However, I believe that our goals may align. The balance of power in the Fae realm is shifting, and a dark force threatens to consume everything in its path." "Does this dark force have designs for Short Creek or Gaia?" Chris asks. "It is possible," Nilrim replies thoughtfully. "The dark force seeks to disrupt the balance of nature and magic. If it succeeds, it could have disastrous consequences for all realms, including your Gaia. That is why I need your help, to stop the dark force before it's too late." Chris hesitates, then asks, "What can I do? Why not seek out someone more powerful?" "There are more powerful beings in the Fae realm, but they care only for their own interests and power," Nilrim explains. "They would not lift a finger to help another realm. That is why I have come to you. Your skills as a ranger and your understanding of the natural world make you invaluable for this quest." Chris considers Nilrim's words. "I'll try to help, but first, I must warn my town of this threat." Nilrim nods solemnly. "I understand your concern for your town. I would do the same. However, I caution you not to cause panic. Gather evidence before you spread alarm." Chris agrees and decides to leave word with his wife, Amanda. He tells Nilrim, "I'll tell my wife, Amanda. She will keep it secret unless something happens to me." Nilrim nods in agreement. "I will wait here for you. Be cautious, Chris of Short Creek." Chris quickly makes his way back to town, avoiding any potential threats along the way. When he arrives home, he quietly slips inside, but Amanda stirs. "Chris," she calls, her voice tinged with sleep. "Is that you?" Chris steps into their room and gently shakes her awake. "Amanda, I have something important to tell you, but it must remain a secret." He explains the situation. The portal, Nilrim, and the dark force threatening the Fey realm, and possibly their own. Amanda listens carefully, then promises, "I won't tell anyone unless you don't return, but please be careful, Chris." They share a tender moment, and then Chris gathers his gear, readying himself for the journey ahead. Before he leaves, he tells Amanda, "I love you. It's time for me to go. Nilrem is waiting." With a final embrace, Chris steps out into the night and makes his way back to the portal. The forest is eerily quiet, but he presses on, determined. When he reaches the portal, Nilrem is waiting. "I'm ready to help," Chris says. "Amanda will warn the town if something happens to us." Nilrem nods solemnly. "Then let us waste no more time." Together, they step through the portal into the realm of the Fae, where their journey truly begins. As Chris made his way back to the portal, he noticed that the forest seemed quieter than usual. The typical sounds of animals and rustling leaves were replaced by an eerie stillness. He tread carefully, his hand on the hilt of his sword, ready for any danger that might arise. As he approached the glowing portal, he saw Nilrem standing there, his silver hair glowing in the dim light. "Chris of Short Creek," Nilrem said, his voice deep and resonant. "I see you have returned." "I'm ready to help you on your quest," Chris replied. "My wife, Amanda, has the necessary information to warn the town if something should befall us." Nilrem nodded solemnly, his gaze filled with respect. "I am glad to hear it, Chris of Short Creek. Your wife seems like a wise and capable woman. I am sure she will be a great help to your town." Turning his attention back to the portal, Nilrem's face grew determined. "Then let us not waste any more time." He stepped through the shimmering portal, and Chris followed closely behind, feeling a strange sensation as he crossed the threshold. The landscape changed abruptly, and Chris found himself in a lush, otherworldly forest, filled with towering trees and vibrant, glowing flowers. The sound of water trickling in the distance could be heard, and the air was filled with the scent of fresh flowers and damp earth. "This forest feels completely different from the one I'm used to," Chris remarked. Nilrem smiled slightly. "That is because this is the realm of the Fae, a place of magic and wonder unlike anything you have ever seen before. The trees and flowers here have a life and consciousness of their own, and the very air is filled with magic." He gestured to the surrounding forest, pride evident in his eyes. "Does that mean I can use magic in this realm?" Chris asked. Nilrem gently shook his head. "Alas, the magic of the Fey realm is not so easily accessible. Only those attuned to the magical energies of this realm, such as myself and other Fey beings, can harness its power. However, do not despair, Chris of Short Creek. Your skills as a ranger will be invaluable here, and there are other ways you can defend yourself if the need arises." "That's good to know," Chris responded. Nilrem led him deeper into the forest, pointing out various magical plants and creatures along the way. Chris noticed that the animals here were far more vibrant and colorful than those in his own world, and many seemed to possess magical abilities, such as glowing or changing color. As they walked, Nilrem spoke more about the threat facing the Fey realm. "The dark force I mentioned earlier is a being of immense power, one that feeds off the magic of the Fey realm and grows stronger each day. It seeks to consume everything in its path, leaving only chaos and destruction behind. If it is not stopped, it will eventually spill over into your world, with catastrophic consequences." He paused for a moment, his gaze serious. "What do you mean by consume?" Chris asked. Nilrem took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "The dark force consumes magic, draining the very life force from the Fey realm and its inhabitants. It begins by corrupting the land and the creatures that live there, turning them into twisted and malevolent versions of themselves. If left unchecked, it will consume everything in its path, leaving nothing but a barren wasteland." "Does this dark force have a name?" Chris inquired. Nilrem nodded. Yes, the dark force is known as the Void Caller. It is a being of immense power and malevolence, one that thrives on chaos and destruction. It is said that it was once a powerful Fey being, but it was corrupted by its own power and turned against its own kind. How do we stop it? Chris asked, determination in his voice. Nilrem looked thoughtful for a moment, considering the best course of action. The Void Caller is a formidable opponent, one that cannot be defeated by force alone. We will need to outsmart it and disrupt its power source to weaken it. I have a plan, but it will require caution and stealth. He began to outline his strategy for stopping the Void Caller. We must infiltrate its lair, deep within the corrupted heart of the Fey realm, and disrupt its power source. This won't be easy, as the lair is heavily guarded by twisted and malevolent creatures loyal to the Void Caller's will. He turned to Chris, his gaze serious. That's where you come in, Chris of Short Creek, Nilrem said. Your skills as a ranger and your knowledge of the natural world will be invaluable in navigating the treacherous terrain and evading the enemies that lie ahead. Together, we will strike at the heart of the Void Caller's power and end its destruction. Chris nodded, feeling a sense of determination and purpose. I am ready. Do we have any allies to help us? Chris asked. Nilrem pondered the question before responding. While the Void Caller has corrupted many of the Fey creatures, there are still some who remain uncorrupted and loyal to the balance of the realm. I believe we can rally a small group of allies to aid us, but we must tread carefully. The corrupted Fey are quick to anger and will not hesitate to attack if they sense any treachery. Let's gather our forces then, Chris replied. Nilrem nodded. Very well, Chris of Short Creek. Let's begin our search for allies. We'll need to move quickly and quietly, as the corrupted Fey are always on the lookout for intruders. The two ventured deeper into the magical forest, their eyes scanning for any signs of uncorrupted Fey. As they ventured further, the forest became denser and darker, with twisted trees and strange glowing mushrooms lighting the path. Nilrem signaled for Chris to stop, pointing toward a group of small luminescent creatures flitting about in the distance. They appeared to be uncorrupted Fey, with delicate wings and gossamer clothing. Nilrem cautiously approached them, whispering words of peace and reassurance. Chris, meanwhile, kept a lookout for any approaching threats. He soon noticed a group of twisted and malevolent creatures emerging from the shadows. Their elongated limbs, sharp teeth, and glowing red eyes gave them an unnatural, horrifying appearance. Chris quietly alerted Nilrem, who nodded. Stay calm and steady, Nilrem murmured, his eyes fixed on the approaching creatures. We must not let them know we've noticed them yet. He raised a hand, signaling for the small group of uncorrupted Fey to hide. They obeyed, their gossamer wings vanishing as they blended seamlessly into the shadows. Chris nocked an arrow, ready to defend himself and Nilrem. The twisted creatures continued to approach, their menacing growls filling the air. Nilrem drew his sword, his focus unwavering. As the creatures reached them, Nilrem leapt forward, engaging in a flurry of strikes. Chris fired an arrow at one of the dark creatures trying to flank Nilrem. His arrow struck true, and the creature let out a guttural growl before collapsing to the ground. Nilrem swiftly dispatched the rest of the creatures with precise, lethal blows. Well done, Chris of Short Creek, Nilrem said, nodding approvingly. Please just call me Chris. How are the Fey we found? Chris asked. Nilrem smiled, gesturing toward the shadows where the uncorrupted Fey had hidden. They seem unharmed. Let's see if they're willing to join us in our quest. As he stepped forward, the luminescent creatures emerged, their wings fluttering with excitement. They whispered among themselves, their delicate voices like a soft melody. One Fey stepped forward, her wings shimmering in the light. We will join you, she declared, We will help you restore balance to our realm and stop the Void Caller's destruction." Nilrem bowed his head in gratitude. "Thank you, my friends." Chris asked, "How can you help us?" The small Fey woman smiled, her delicate features illuminated by the glow of her wings. "We can help you navigate the treacherous terrain of the corrupted forest and communicate with other uncorrupted Fey who may join your cause. Our knowledge of the Fey realm is vast, and we can aid in finding the Void Caller's lair and disrupting its power source." As Chris and Nilrem journeyed with their new allies, the forest grew more ominous, with twisted trees and poisonous plants becoming more prevalent. The haunting landscape whispered of the darkness overtaking the once vibrant realm. Chris noticed more uncorrupted Fey creatures watching from the shadows, their gossamer wings fluttering nervously. Their presence seemed to inspire hope among the uncorrupted, and they began to follow at a distance. Chris signaled to Nilrem, who understood immediately. Together they approached the creatures, speaking softly and offering protection. Soon, the group grew in number, with the new Fey joining the quest. Chris organized a defensive perimeter, placing the hardiest Fey along the edges and sending the quickest ahead as scouts. "How much further, Nilrem?" Chris asked. "We may need to make camp before long. I don't think traveling late is wise, this deep into the corruption." Nilrem surveyed their surroundings. "You're right, Chris. We should make camp soon. The forest grows more dangerous the deeper we go, and pushing on now would be unwise." He turned to the Fey. "My friends, can you help us find a suitable place to camp?" One of the Fey stepped forward. "We know a place," she said. "Follow us." Chris and Nilrem followed the Fey as they led the way into the depths of the corrupted forest. Nilrem and the group of companions followed the fairy through the dense underbrush, navigating through twisted trees and glowing mushrooms that guided their path. After a short journey, they came upon a hidden glade, encircled by towering trees and bathed in the soft light of the magical mushrooms. "I'll stand watch. I'm not tired yet," Chris offered. Nilrem nodded, appreciative. "Thank you, Chris. I'll take the first watch with you." As night fell, the glade was illuminated by the gentle glow of the mushrooms. Chris and Nilrem sat together, keeping a vigilant eye on the surroundings. The corrupted forest seemed to come alive in the darkness, filled with eerie sounds and strange shadows. As the night deepened, the unnatural noises grew louder, creeping closer to their camp. Nilrem, ever watchful, noticed Chris's concern and whispered, "Do not worry, Chris. We are well protected. The uncorrupted Fey's magic has created a barrier around our camp. Still, we must remain alert. Get some sleep. I'll wake you when I'm too tired to stand guard," Chris said. Nilrem hesitated but eventually agreed, trusting Chris's instincts. He found a spot to rest while Chris continued to watch. As the hours passed, Chris's senses sharpened, scanning the area for danger. Soon, he noticed a faint pulsing light approaching from the distance. As it drew closer, Chris could make out a procession of ethereal beings, their forms shimmering and translucent, exuding an aura of magic and light. Curious, Chris asked one of the nearby fairies, "What are these creatures?" The fairy hummed thoughtfully, her wings shimmering in the dappled light. "Those are the Eldritch Guardians, protectors of the ancient ways and keepers of the balance in the Fey realm. They are powerful and wise, and rarely reveal themselves to outsiders. It is an honor to be in their presence." "Whose side are they on, though?" Chris asked. The fairy tilted her head. "They are on the side of balance and order. They would not support the Void Caller's corruption, but they remain neutral in most conflicts, seeking to maintain the balance between good and evil." "Neutral until the Void Caller sets its sights on them, you mean?" Chris remarked. The fairy hesitated before nodding. "Yes, you understand correctly. When the balance of the realm is truly threatened, the Eldritch Guardians may intervene, but they would not explicitly ally themselves with us. They might offer guidance or subtle assistance, allowing us to find our own path. Chris stood and hailed the Eldritch Guardians. As he did, they turned their ethereal gazes toward him, their serene faces filled with powerful presence. One of the Guardians stepped forward, acknowledging Chris with a raised hand. Its voice, like a harmonious melody, echoed through the glade. "We acknowledge your presence, Ranger. Do you have any desire to help us dispel the Void Caller's influence to save the Fey realm?" Chris asked. The Guardian regarded him for a moment before replying, "The Void Caller's influence is a threat to the balance of the realm, and thus, to our purpose. However, we do not directly involve ourselves in mortal affairs. We can offer guidance and wisdom, but the task of banishing the Void Caller is yours alone." Chris pressed further. "How can we banish the Void Caller?" The Guardian's expression remained calm as it answered, "The Void Caller is a powerful entity, bound to a dark force from the dawn of time. Its corruption spreads like a disease, consuming all in its path. To banish it, you must find the source of its power and sever its connection to the Fey realm." The Guardian paused, allowing its words to sink in. Chris asked, "Where is its source of power? What is its source of power?" The Eldritch Guardian continued, "The source of the Void Caller's power is in the Infinity Vortex, a swirling vortex of darkness that exists at the heart of the corrupted forest. It is said that this vortex is connected to the plane of echoes, the realm of all lost knowledge and forbidden power." "So how do we defeat the Void Caller?" Chris questioned further. "Do you toss it into the plane of echoes? Do we destroy the Infinity Vortex?" The Eldritch Guardian shook its head, its form shimmering with each movement. "No, the Infinity Vortex cannot be destroyed. It is an eternal part of the fabric of the Fey realm, bound by ancient forces beyond mortal comprehension. But you can cleanse it, purging the darkness and restoring balance." Chris nodded slowly, absorbing the information. "Purge it how? With what?" Chris asked, still seeking clarity. The Eldritch Guardian regarded him with a serene expression, its form pulsing gently. "To purge the Infinity Vortex, you must use the light of echoes. This powerful radiance is said to reside in the heart of the plane of echoes, where all lost knowledge is preserved. It can counteract the darkness, restoring balance and order to the corrupted vortex." Chris gently shook Nilrem's shoulder, rousing him from his sleep. As Nilrem rubbed the sleep from his eyes, Chris filled him in on the conversation he had with the Eldritch Guardian. Nilrem's expression turned serious as he listened attentively, absorbing the new information. When Chris finished speaking, Nilrem nodded, understanding the importance of what had been learned. "The light of echoes," Nilrem murmured, lost in thought. "It's a powerful and elusive force, Chris. Few have ever seen it and lived to tell the tale. But if the Eldritch Guardian is correct, it may be our only hope in restoring balance to the Fey realm." He looked at Chris, his eyes filled with determination. "We must find a way to reach the plane of echoes and retrieve the light of echoes." Chris sighed. "I guess that's the next step. I'm going to sleep now." Nilrem nodded. "Rest well, Chris. We'll need our strength for the trials ahead." He took over the watch, his eyes scanning the surrounding forest as Chris settled down to sleep. The glow of the magical mushrooms and the soft humming of the uncorrupted Fae created a comforting atmosphere, allowing Chris to drift off into a peaceful slumber. As dawn broke, Chris woke up feeling refreshed and ready to face the new day. Stretching his limbs, he felt the cool air of the morning against his skin. Nilrem, still on watch, noticed Chris's movement and gave him a nod, indicating that everything had been quiet during the night. The Eldritch Guardians, who had appeared last night, had vanished, leaving behind an air of peace and tranquility. Together, Chris and Nilrem gathered everyone and prepared to depart for the Plane of Echoes. The uncorrupted Fae rushed to assemble, their gossamer wings fluttering in anticipation. The hardiest among them formed a protective barrier around Chris and Nilrim, while the swiftest took the lead, scouting for any dangers along the path. With Nilrim by his side, Chris began the journey toward the Plain of Echoes. The uncorrupted Fae guided them through the tangled depths of the corrupted forest, their knowledge of the terrain proving invaluable. As they ventured further, the landscape became increasingly surreal, filled with bizarre flora and fauna that seemed to belong to another world entirely. The air around them grew thick with a sense of foreboding. The sky above darkened, swirling with ominous clouds, and the ground beneath their feet felt unstable, as if the very earth itself was resisting their progress. Suddenly, the uncorrupted Fae scouts returned, their expressions grave. "What's wrong?" Chris asked. One of the uncorrupted Fae, its gossamer wings quivering with anxiety, approached him. It whispered, "A great darkness lies ahead. We can feel its presence, corrupting and consuming everything in its path. We cannot proceed any further without facing significant danger." Nilrim frowned, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. He nodded in agreement. "The scouts are correct." Chris sighed. "I guess it's just us two from here." Nilrim turned to him, his expression serious. "Indeed, Chris. It seems we must face this danger alone. But rest assured, I will be by your side every step of the way." They both prepared themselves for the challenge ahead, checking their weapons and supplies. The uncorrupted Fae bid them farewell, their delicate voices filled with concern, but also pride. As Chris and Nilrim ventured deeper into the corrupted forest, the air grew thick with oppressive energy. Shadows danced around them, stretching and twisting in unnatural ways. The once beautiful flora now appeared dark and menacing, as if it might reach out and snare them at any moment. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the forest, followed by the sound of cracking twigs and crunching leaves. Chris nocked an arrow and scanned the area for the source of the noise. A large, twisted creature emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing with malevolent light. Its form was grotesque, a perversion of nature itself, with twisted limbs and a maw filled with razor-sharp teeth. It snarled, sensing easy prey in Chris and Nilrim. Nilrim readied his weapon, his eyes focused on the twisted creature. "We must be careful, Chris," he whispered. "This creature is not of this world. Its power is dark and corrupt. We'll need to strike fast and hard to have any chance of defeating it." As the twisted creature charged toward them, saliva dripping from its monstrous jaws, Chris took aim and released his arrow. It soared through the air and hit the beast's shoulder, but it didn't seem to slow down. Chris quickly nocked another arrow, aiming for the creature's eye while moving away from it. His arrow flew true, piercing the creature's eye, causing it to stumble and howl in pain. Taking advantage of the confusion, Chris picked up a loose rock and tossed it in the opposite direction. The rock clattered against a tree, diverting the creature's attention away from his true location. While the creature focused on the distraction, Chris and Nilrim circled around its flank. The beast, now blinded in one eye, snarled and snapped in the wrong direction. Chris signaled to Nilrim, who nodded in understanding. Together, they launched a coordinated strike, Chris firing another arrow while Nilrim moved in with his sword. Chris aimed for the creature's ear this time, but the arrow whizzed past it. However, the distraction gave Nilrim the chance to strike, plunging his sword deep into the creature's side. The beast howled in agony, its strength waning. Seizing the moment, Chris moved in close and shot an arrow point-blank into the creature's heart. The twisted creature let out a final roar before collapsing, defeated. Breathing heavily, Chris and Nilrim exchanged a glance, a mixture of exhaustion and triumph in their eyes. With the creature vanquished, the oppressive energy dissipated, leaving the air calm and quiet. "Well done, Chris," Nilrim said, sheathing his sword. "Thanks," Chris replied, catching his breath. We worked well as a team. Let's keep moving so we don't run into anything else like that creature." They continued their journey, and as they pressed on, the forest gradually returned to its normal state. Eventually, they reached a shimmering portal, pulsating with an ethereal light. "I guess we are moving on to the Plane of Echoes. I hope you're ready," Chris said, glancing at Nilram. Nilram nodded, his eyes filled with anticipation. "Indeed, Chris. I believe we're ready for what awaits us." Together they stepped through the portal, entering the strange, timeless realm of the Plane of Echoes. As the two of them stepped through the portal, they were greeted by a scene that defied description. The Plane of Echoes was a realm of utter silence and stillness, yet it vibrated with the weight of untold knowledge and forgotten history. The air shimmered with echoes of the past, and their very presence seemed to reverberate through time and space. "This isn't weird at all," Chris remarked, marveling at the surreal landscape around him. Time and space appeared to warp and bend in unpredictable ways, creating a disorienting but strangely beautiful tableau. Translucent structures and spectral apparitions drifted by, like half-remembered dreams made manifest. It was clear that this was a realm of immense power, one where the line between memory and reality was thin and blurred. "Which way do we go?" Chris asked. Nilram gazed around, taking in the spectral surroundings. He then pointed towards a faint, shimmering path that seemed to lead deeper into the Plane of Echoes. "This way, Chris. The Light of Echoes is said to reside where the echoes of time converge. We must follow this path and trust in our instincts." They followed the shimmering path, their footsteps echoing softly in the stillness of the Plane of Echoes. As they progressed, the echoes of the past grew louder, weaving a tapestry of memories and events that seemed both familiar and foreign. They saw glimpses of long-forgotten faces, places, and moments, each one carrying a sense of profound significance. Nilram walked beside Chris, his gaze thoughtful as he took in the ever-changing landscape. He explained that the Plane of Echoes contained the memories and knowledge of all that had ever existed, making it both an invaluable source of wisdom and a dangerous place for those who weren't prepared. As they continued along the shimmering path, the echoes of time became more distinct. They saw glimpses of historical events, like the founding of Gaia, the first contact between humans and elves, and even the creation of the glowing portal that connected their world to the Fae realm. The knowledge was overwhelming, but Chris's ranger instincts kept him focused on the task at hand. As they tread carefully, the echoes of time guided them to a magnificent ancient structure. A sense of reverence filled the air, and they felt the immense weight of history pressing upon them. Nilram whispered that this was the Infinity Vortex, the very source of the Void Caller's power. A brilliant, pulsating light emanated from its core, the Light of Echoes. "How do we use it?" Chris asked. Nilram examined the Infinity Vortex with a thoughtful expression. "The Light of Echoes is a powerful force, but it cannot be wielded directly. We must find a way to cleanse the Infinity Vortex, disrupting the Void Caller's power source." He turned to Chris, his eyes filled with determination. "Your ranger skills and knowledge of nature may prove vital in this endeavor. We must find a way to purify the Infinity Vortex, perhaps through a ritual or an object imbued with powerful cleansing energies. Let's explore the area and see if we can uncover any clues." They began searching the ancient structure and the surrounding area, looking for anything that might help them in their quest. Chris kept his eyes open for an object that seemed pure but natural. He and Nilram searched with keen eyes, scouring the ancient structure and the surrounding environment for any signs of a natural, pure object that could aid them. The air was heavy with the weight of history, the echoes of the past whispering secrets of long-forgotten lore. As they explored, Chris spotted a crystal growing out from the base of the structure. The crystal was clear and radiant, its surface gleaming with an inner light. It seemed out of place in this realm of echoes and memories, a beacon of natural purity amidst the chaos. He carefully picked it up, feeling a surge of energy coursing through it, resonating with the power of the light of echoes. Nilrem looked at the crystal with curiosity. "This could be it," he said, examining its radiant surface. He took the crystal from Chris, his eyes gleaming with determination. "With this crystal and the light of echoes, we might have a chance to purify the infinity vortex and disrupt the Void Caller's power source." He turned to face the infinity vortex, holding the crystal high. The light of echoes pulsated brighter, reacting to the crystal's presence. Nilrem began to chant an ancient elven incantation, his voice echoing through the plane of echoes. The crystal in his hand glowed brighter with each word, absorbing the light of echoes. As the ritual continued, the atmosphere shifted. The oppressive weight of knowledge lifted, replaced by a sense of hope and determination. The crystal in Nilrem's hand pulsed with an intense light, glowing brighter and brighter as it absorbed the power of the light of echoes. The infinity vortex, previously pulsating with dark energy, began to react to the crystal's radiance. The dark tendrils recoiled, as if in fear of the pure, natural energy emanating from the crystal. With the ritual nearing its climax, Nilrem's voice grew stronger, his incantation reaching a crescendo. The crystal's glow intensified, and a brilliant beam of light shot forth, striking the infinity vortex. A wave of energy rippled outward, shaking the very foundations of the plane of echoes. The dark tendrils recoiled further, their hold on the vortex weakening. The infinity vortex, now brighter than ever, seemed to hum with newfound energy. The crystal in Nilrem's hand slowly dimmed as its power transferred to the vortex, purging the corrupted force that had taken root there. As the dark tendrils receded completely, a sense of relief washed over Chris. The air felt lighter, and the heavy burden of the Void Caller's power was lifted. "We've purged the Void Caller's power source," Chris said. "Now what?" Nilrem lowered his hand, a satisfied look on his face as the crystal's glow faded away. "We've done it, Chris. The Void Caller's power source has been purged. Its influence over the Fey realm should begin to wane, allowing the uncorrupted Fey to restore balance." He turned to Chris, his eyes reflecting the pulsating light of the infinity vortex. "However, our task is not yet complete. The Void Caller may still be at large, and we must ensure it doesn't regain its power or find a new source. We should return to the Fey realm and inform the Eldritch Guardians of our success. They can help us monitor the situation and take further action if necessary." "Good," Chris replied. "Let's get out of this realm." With a nod, Nilrem led the way back to the shimmering portal. They both stepped through, feeling the familiar sensation of their bodies being stretched and compressed. As they re-emerged into the Fey realm, a feeling of hope filled the air. The uncorrupted Fey, who had been anxiously waiting for their return, celebrated their success. The Eldritch Guardians, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, approached Chris and Nilrem. Their ethereal forms seemed brighter, more vibrant than before. One of them spoke, acknowledging their achievement in purging the Void Caller's power source. Nilrem turned to Chris, a smile on his face. "Well done, Chris. We've made a significant difference in this realm." "I take it that my services are no longer needed?" Chris asked. Nilrem pondered the question for a moment, his gaze turning to the Eldritch Guardians and the uncorrupted Fey celebrating their victory. "While your immediate mission has been accomplished, I believe your unique skills and understanding of both our world and yours could prove invaluable in maintaining the balance and preventing any future threats. The choice, of course, is yours." "I'd be more than happy to help next time you need me. The new friends I've made, as well as the knowledge gained from the Plane of Echoes, made this journey worth it. Protecting the realms from the Void Caller was just a bonus. Nilrem's eyes lit up with gratitude and respect. Your willingness to help, Chris, is truly commendable. I would be honored to call upon you again, should the need arise. Until then, let us celebrate this victory and enjoy the restored balance in the Fae realm. In the hours that followed, Chris joined the Fae in celebration, sharing stories of the journey and their accomplishments. After the celebration, Nilrem accompanied him back to the portal home. Chris headed through the portal after saying his goodbyes to Nilrem, eager to go home to his wife, Amanda. As he stepped through the portal, he was greeted by the familiar sights and sounds of his world. Nilrem followed closely behind, a look of satisfaction and relief on his face. They both took a moment to appreciate the beauty of this realm, knowing the crucial role they had played in preserving its peace. Walking back to his home, Chris found Amanda waiting for him on the porch. She rushed to him as he approached, her eyes filled with concern. "Chris, you're back. I was so worried," she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around him. He felt the warmth of her embrace, a stark contrast to the surreal experiences he'd just had. "I'm fine, Amanda. I've got a lot to tell you," he responded, holding her close.